All right, so every time we have a guest who appears on the program on ZASLOW Show 2.0, brought to us by Johnny Cuba, European roots with a Caribbean soul. Start your weekend. Maybe you want to get the weekend going early a little bit. I don't know what you're up to. It's Thursday. Get it going a little early. Start your weekend with a refreshing German lager in a can. You can pick up a six-pack of Johnny Cuba today. It's Sedano's, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. You got holiday specials going on right now all through this season. And don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Joining us here, we have our pal, Brett Romberg, who looks very excited. This is nice, right? Look at you. Was that excellent pronunciation on my part?
I was like, did you just roll your R?
That's the first right. Time
you roll an R.
I've been living here my whole life. I'm finally getting the hang of it, right? Let's go. Come on now. Let's do it.
Better than hearing a Jewish dude roll his R's. It sounds phenomenal. I love it.
How you feeling, man? You doing good? I mean, you got your Canes, you got the U shirt right there. You're not embarrassed? Like you're okay? You're feeling all right about the Hurricanes?
Obviously nobody wanted the ending outcome of what happened, but clearly people have been paying attention to what Mario Cristobal's got going on with the recruiting stuff. And for him to finish the way that he finished off that recruiting season was absolutely incredible. If you really think about it, there's a reason why he won Recruiter of the Year while he was at Alabama. And he basically, if he wasn't the winner, he was a runner-up when he was at Rutgers and those type of things. So watching him dominate, be a top five, Big Five conference championship coach, and seeing him recruit and ultimately go back to some of the that he ended up recruiting originally out of Oregon, and having those guys pull and flop and flip, and even as at Alabama. So seeing the O-line get a lot better, that's huge for me. Huge.
So everything you're saying right here is valid, but what's the difference between why is this going to be any different than, Canes have had the great recruiting classes. I mean, very infamously, you remember Randy Shannon had the amazing Northwestern recruiting class, why is this any different?
The reason why I think it's different is I could give you this statistic. People thought that we were talented the year before, right? Like Manny's final year. That was one of the biggest arguments is, well, we did a lot better when Manny was the head coach with the same guys. And no. If you look at film, if you watch film, and if you dissect film, the way that the kids were operating, blocking, and then all the other accoutrements that I saw off of the football field, the answer is no. And the reason why it's no is because when you look at NFL talent and NFL scouting, you can I'll give you two reasons. We were ranked 11th out of 12 ACC teams in terms of talent pool, which is utterly embarrassing. So our talent pool was ranked 11 out of the 12 ACC teams. Secondly, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but all these kids that wanted to leave and get in the transfer portal and have an opportunity elsewhere, anybody see any of the big schools coming around and picking them up, i.e. even their former offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators? Yeah, just nobody wants them. And there's a reason why.
I was always like, the way that it was explained to me was that last year with Manny, or even the last couple of years with Manny, it was bad players in a scheme, in a system that worked for them. And now the first year with Mario, you had bad players in a completely different scheme that didn't work for them.
Yeah, and you couldn't be highlighted even more when you're looking at Gaddis's offense, right? So Gaddis is coming from a very highly enriched, talented University of Michigan team who absolutely dissected and throttled Ohio State this year, which was beautiful on my Christmas list as well. But, him having a little bit of an ego, which a lot of offensive coordinators do, and trying to stick to his system while trying to accommodate some of the lack of talent. That was evident. He would flop back and forth from a spread offense back into tighter packaging because of the quarterback rotation and the lack of wide receiver talent. So now I hope that he's going to get a bunch of guys in there willing to work hard, willing to do whatever it takes to be old school Miami Hurricane mentality. And I'm sure everybody's, super fed up with hearing about the old school mentality, but it's literally the only thing that works down here. It's kids that have passion to perform for the crib, like for this place. It's not a passion to perform for NIL deals, for money, for the bag at the end of the day, which, there isn't any more resources than there is down here in terms of you're looking for that. And that, like, the university has stepped up and they've created I guess you could say like almost like a portfolio, or they put together a plan. Let's just say that, to go ahead and accommodate and compete with some of these NIL deals that are going around the country. So very rich surrounding areas, very rich businesses, very rich people, and then you want to mix in, the old mentality of fun in the sun and the beach and all that other stuff. It's just it's getting a lot better.
So you're telling the Canes fan right here on ZASLOW Show 2.0, you're telling the Canes fan this year suck balls, but it's definitely going to get better, a lot better.
A lot better. And you're going to see spurts of it. You know what I mean? Like when you strip everything down to the bare roots or the brass roots, and, you knock all the dust off the rebar, and you got to put new rebar in, which is your foundation. And there is going to be bumps along the road. You're going to see super highs and lows.
But this is going to be as bad as it gets. It's not good. Like, it's all the way up from here.
Exactly. Like, you've hit rock bottom, like, losing to Middle Tennessee State.
Do you think he knew that maybe not when he took the job, but do you think there was a sign at one point where it's like, all right, this is actually going to be it's going to be a lot more work than I thought it was going to be?
Nope. First things he told me when I was at his press conference, when they were announcing him, was there is so much work to do here. It's ridiculous. Almost like a whisper in the ear kind of thing.
Well, that's good to hear then.
Yeah, it was like you have no idea what's been going on here.
Okay.
Kind of thing. So I was like, okay, get ready. But I drank the Kool-Aid like everybody else, every form here, and we expected a little bit more. But then once you saw it all stripped away and stripped down, you realize that this wasn't good at all.
What do you think would have happened, like on your Canes team's national champion, 2 years undefeated until the second national title game, and yet all the first round picks, a bunch of those NFL players were backups, at first on your team. How would the transfer portal have changed all that? Like, would some of those guys have bailed?
Funny you asked that question, and no. And I'm saying no, not because of me and I was the starting guy, but in our group chat from our 2001 and 2002 team, like I said, we have about 75 guys. Every day it's like I'm freaking answering Joaquin's happy birthday to this guy, happy birthday to that guy. It drives you nuts. All you hear is ding, ding, ding. But all of the other guys, like for instance, it was the twins' birthday. Mel and Rel Weaver came from the West, local high school phenoms. Fastest guys on kickoff cover, would light my brain on fire every practice because they were the scout team linebackers, and they would come downhill and wreck shop. These guys basically started on special teams, never got much playing time on our starting defense. And they made it a point where we didn't care. We were part of something special. We knew we can go somewhere else and play somewhere else if we really wanted to, but we wanted to play here and be part of this. So just judging by those two guys' comments, and like guys like Jason Gathers, and even Joel Rodriguez, who's his birthday today, shout out. They all say the same thing. It's like, we knew we had to wait our turn. We earned our stripes, much like what Alonzo Highsmith says with the swag. Swag isn't a bag of money, and it's like not the color of your shirt or a chain that you wear around your neck. It's the doing stuff on Saturdays. It's the working out extra. It's running the hill. It's everything else that comes with it that makes you earn your swag.
How about Ed Reed? I talked a little bit about this on the show yesterday, where you could understand black dudes who get upset when it comes to the coaching opportunities, where, Deion Sanders is probably the greatest cornerback of all time, and he has to start his head coaching journey at Jackson State. Ed Reed is, if not the best ever, definitely top 5 safeties of all time, and he has to start his head coaching journey, by the way, with coaching experience, not head coaching experience, but coaching experience. He has to start his head coaching journey and Bethune-Cookman. But if you're part of the good old boys club, you get to be Jeff Saturday and start your head coaching experience at the NFL level with no prior experience. Like, you can kind of understand how black dudes get upset with coaching opportunities, right?
Yeah, I'm with you, and I agree with Joy and all of her stuff that she says on her show. That was a one-off. Like, that was by far one of the more insane things that has happened in the NFL. But this is stuff that goes back to when you're playing and you're friends with coaches and you're friends with owners, and you keep that relationship alive. And actually, there's a huge thing where in your room and in your film room, if you're caught shaking hands with the owner or even talking with the owner on film, you're getting a massive fine by your teammates. Like, nobody likes the sucking up. And then, one of my offensive line coaches back in the day used to tell me that, I don't even know if you can say this on the internet, but I'd rather have it in my mouth than having it put behind me. You know what I mean? If you get my translation there, I think it's pretty easy to understand that. And it goes a long way, and not burning bridges and not MFing coaches. And because I've seen it both ways, to be honest with you, I've seen guys burn bridges, not get an opportunity, not get paid. And then I've also seen guys that shouldn't be getting paid that are getting paid because of a friendship situation. So seeing Ed Reed going to Bethune and doing what everybody else normally does is start from the ground up in that athletic world of whether it's film or it's scouting or, player personnel, they all start from the bottom at some point in time. But I think with a guy like Ed, the reason why is because everybody was kind of questioning Ed's dedication to that craft. Like, if you think about it, and it's nothing against Ed by any means, and this is just people making that assumption. And I'll make the same assumption where when you've achieved, like, why isn't Peyton Manning? You don't think Peyton Manning could be a head coach somewhere? You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why he's not, is because he's made a shit ton of money. He is getting paid millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to talk about.
He doesn't even want to do the Manning cast on a weekly basis. He wants it like every other week.
Because they don't need to. And they put everything that they've had into the game. So, questioning how much does Ed have left in the game? Does he want to transfer his knowledge? Yeah, of course he does. Does he have that dedication? Because people know his travel schedule of going back and forth from Georgia to Miami, Miami to Georgia, his son playing football. Same reason as Jason Taylor. Jason, the reason why Jason is at the U on like a somewhat of a part-time kind of situation is because he wants to continue coaching, but he also wants to have a relationship with his son and his family. So you can't have both. So Ed basically, or any coach for that matter, ultimately forfeits that family relationship the minute they get into it.
How many concussions do you think you had in your career?
Oh my God! By the Weaver twins in practice alone, God, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 a year for sure.
But in practice back then, so you're talking 20 years ago, you would suffer what you think was a concussion in practice. You weren't coming off the field, right?
Oh God, no. I never missed anything. Never missed anything. Never missed any game. Never missed anything. Even compound dislocated fingers where bones are sticking out where I can't even grab the football. I was snapping with my other hand, to Ken Dorsey. So no, there was a lot of bell ringing, a lot of walking.
So you can't even put a number on it.
No, God, no. Like for real, like serious ones that I remember, like not knowing where the hell I was at off the top of my head. I don't know, 10, 12. Like literally not knowing what's going on. And then the sounds in the stadium, and then all of a sudden it goes deafening. Like you could hear the roars, and then all of a sudden there's no more roars. And you're kind of looking around, and it's like a movie, like, where you hit that scene in a movie where it's kind of slow-mo, and the guy whether it's Bloodsport and Van Damme's doing this with his hands, and it's like everything's slow-mo and he can't hear anything. That happens a lot. And back in the day, yeah, you're not. The only reason why some guys are off is because they're throwing up or they're crying uncontrollably. Like Zach Thomas, I tell this story all the time. Zach was like one of my biggest idols being down here at the U. They called me Baby Zach because we have that iron blockhead, white dude look to us. And Zach would tell me that he'd have to stand up on the sidelines. The doctors wouldn't let him sit down because if he sit down, he fell asleep. Could you imagine in an NFL football game, you're the middle linebacker, cerebrally, you're going berserker because you're trying to know everything that offense is doing and you're making calls for people. But the minute you sit down in a game, in a 3-hour time period of your adrenaline going through the roof, he falls asleep. And because his eggs were scrambled. So they would have to make him stand up the whole time when you'd come to the sideline. It's just, back in the day, you don't come out. You just don't. And then once 2012 came, new helmets, new equipment, new medicine, the way doctors even gave you your drugs before games and after games and in mid games, pre-game, all that other stuff, that all changed in 2012. So
what do you make of the guys on television? Like Robert Griffin has been really loud about it. Booger McFarland has been really loud about it. What do you make about the guys on television who are talking about, Tua, you got to consider retiring? I got a problem twofold with that kind of stuff. Number one, I think it's pretty rich for these guys who have had full NFL careers and been able to make money to support their family being on television and telling Tua, what he should and should not do when he's so close. He's less than a year away from the huge quarterback payday. I think that's really rich for those guys to be on television and tell him what he can and cannot do. And the second part is everyone wants to play doctor. Like, do you think the doctors who are treating Tua, they're catching NFL Live and they're hearing those guys on TV like, wow, you know what? Booger made a good point. Why didn't we think of that? Like they're doctors and they're the ones treating him, you know, like I got a real problem with all of that, Brett.
Not only that, but my favorite is like the local beat writers from every single city that has an NFL team, and probably for that matter, a university team, creating their diagnoses too. When Tua went down with the first concussion, like all of a sudden they're an expert.
That's a concussion. I know that's a like. How about the doctors who were there treating him? Can we trust them? And you're sitting on your couch in your underwear with a bag of Cheetos. Can you trust the doctors?
Well, not only that, but the doctors are going to be super careful nowadays because of individual lawsuits against them. Like I know Uribe, when he was with the Dolphins, he got sued out the ass like crazy by, Yatil Green, I believe it was, when he had a turf toe or something.
No, that was OJ. That was OJ.
Oh, that was McDuffie?
Yeah.
Like doctors are very tentative nowadays, and they're going to be super precautious about the concussion game, especially because it's on the news. Every single time a player looks a little bit funky or takes a hit to the head, immediately it's all about the doctors. But I will say this. Tua is like a toddler that cannot find the athletic ability to fall properly. Like I would advise him in the offseason to find some stunt double that he can go learn how to fall properly, because he's always spinning and landing on the back of his head.
He should wear like the board that the linebackers used to wear.
Like Brian Cox used to have.
Yeah.
Put Coxie's old.
He should wear the board.
Charles Oakley, all those guys from back in the day and I had one of those cowboy collars too. But I don't understand why he continuously falls and hits his head. Like, do you know any other quarterback in the NFL right now that is literally every time he gets tackled, he's getting his head banged off the ground?
Small. He's so small. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you were in his position, would you be like, let's say, what if the doctor said to him, look, you're in a situation right now, you can play right now, but if you get another one of these, we could be heading to a territory where down the road you may have some serious, motor issues. Like, what would you do?
Now that I'm done with the game and I got my own little issues with my brain, and we were kind of hidden behind that veil, that curtain of no, everything's going to be okay in the future. And now everything's kind of exposed and a little bit more transparent of what through later on in life. But I don't know, man, that quarterback money, that next big payday, that's setting up your family, that's generational money. Sometimes you're willing to fall on the sword. And I know Tua is a very religious man, and I'm guessing and I'm sure that he thinks that God has a plan for him. I think he's probably going to go ahead and pray about it. I'm not getting into the Tebow thing here, but he seems like at that level of faith and belief in God has a plan for him and everybody else. And I'm guessing he's going to continue to play, especially if he loves the game of football the way that it seems that he loves it.
What do you make of the idea of we got to protect the players from themselves? Because to me, man, like, these are grown adults who have all the information, who no one was forced into playing football. Like it wasn't like you were drafted to go to war. All right. This is a chosen occupation, and all the information is being presented in front of you. Like, I don't like the idea of, as crazy as it may sound, I don't like the idea of you got to protect the player from himself. I don't know. I'm a grown man. I'm allowed to, I can make decisions for myself.
Yeah, unless they're like totally incognitive and they don't understand what the hell they're doing, like they're sobbing or they're throwing up or they're dealing with like the major issues of a serious concussion. If they're adamant and they're coherent and they're able to go ahead and give you what day it is and all of the other ridiculous, stupid questions that the doctors might ask you during your concussion questionnaire there, I think, you're 100% correct. You elect to play football. It's a violent sport. If you didn't like it, you should have played something else. You should have elected to play baseball, badminton, volleyball, whatever kind of other scholarships the schools might offer you. But you know what you're doing. You know what you're getting into. It's 200 plus pound, 300 plus pound men running at speeds that they should not be moving at and that have extraordinary athletic ability. That it's like running into a car or a wall, and you got to be prepared to basically suffer the consequences.
Did you like playing in the cold? The Dolphins, of course, a couple weeks ago had that game in Buffalo. We're into the weather now. It's end of December, January. We're gonna have some cold playoff games. Did you like playing in the cold?
Yeah. In the beginning, I was one of those like tough guys. In my earlier years, that would come out no shirt, as repulsive as that might sound.
But you can't wear sleeves, right? Like that. That means you're soft.
No, that's against the rules, especially as an offensive lineman. That's against the rules. And what a lot of people don't know is, and I think the refs are starting to check this now, is we used to rub Vaseline all over arms, and that would not only create a nice seal for your heat that it wouldn't escape, but it would be hard as hell for defensive linemen to grab your arms and like use them against you. But as short as mine were, it created.
Yeah, you got T-Rex arms.
Yeah. Old B-Rex. Yeah, that whole thing with the cold and the exposure, even in Canada. Here's the crazy part. This is only playing in like 50-degree weather, 40-degree weather. Guys are like trying to be tough guys, even freezing weather and snowing weather. Like, you're in 20s. But in Canada, we were playing high school football in like the teens. And I made it a very strong point, and everybody else on the team was with me, that you don't even wear a T-shirt underneath your shoulder pads. You're going bare, pulling your jersey up like old Miami style. But what happens is the ground between weeks, sometimes it'd be because the weather is so scattered up there that it'll be raining one day and then it'll be freezing the next day. So the ground basically permafrosted itself. But the previous week's game was a muddy mess. And the sharp footprints that guys were leaving in the mud would obviously create like little knives. And then you're falling on that, you're getting cut up and you're freezing. So imagine, your fingertips are freezing, and the amount of agreements that go on in the NFL, don't let anybody fool you. If there's a blowout, if there's a game that's not important, these guys are creating handshakes, defensive end, offensive tackles, centers, nose tackles. There's a little bit of handshaking going on. Like, all right, man, let's make it look violent. Let's try to hit each other as many times as possible without inflicting any kind of pain on our fingers.
What was the worst weather you ever played in the NFL? Do you remember the game?
Patriots playoff game up in New England, where I think you guys played. Miami played the week before us, and they were shoveling the snow out of the seats. And then we played the following week, where they would have to run snow blowers on the yard lines, on the 10-yard lines. Every 10-yard line down the field, so you would know exactly where your 10 yards are. And then by halftime, it was just full out blizzard, like you couldn't see anything. So,
and like, are you there in halftime in the locker room? Like, fuck, man, we got to go back out there.
You're drinking as much chicken broth as possible, because when it gets that cold, the only thing to serve on the sideline is like high sodium chicken broth, and you're just sucking that down like crazy. Maybe the odd hot dog or two, but yeah, it was. Your fingers are on fire. Everybody's sticking their feet into that giant turbine bench that is heated. They're fighting over hand warmers and things like that. Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Do you miss playing, or are you just so far removed from it?
So far removed.
You don't miss it?
No, I miss the fun locker room camaraderie. Like, for instance, I flew up to Atlanta for Todd McClure's Ring of Honor ceremony, and it was like getting the band back together. Everybody was there, like guys that were there playing when because
you in that nice suite that you and I went to the game in, Dolphins Falcons. They got a really nice Legends suite there at Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
We ventured into that, but we also kind of hung down underneath the bowl of the stadium, where it's kind of it's like I wouldn't say it's like live, but it's like the Dallas Cowboy thing, where everything's down on the bottom and you're basically ground level. And all of the former players were there. A lot of former players look like they ate the former players. Some of them are in really bad shape. They're a little bit puffy, So
we went to that game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Dolphins. Jay Cutler actually won that game for the Dolphins. Dolphins and Falcons in the Legends suite, and that was when at the end of the game, Romberg wanted to fight the actor Michael Pena.
He was annoying as shit that day, wasn't he?
I was mortified with the whole scene. Like, okay, so Michael Pena, like, you may not, you're listening right now, you may not recognize him, but you may not recognize him by name, but if you saw him, you know exactly who he is. All right, he's been in 1,000 movies. Matter of fact, like, he's the really funny guy in the Ant-Man movies right now. Okay, but he's been in 100 movies. All right, Michael Pena, and Romberg wanted to fight him. All right. Not that Michael Pena wanted to fight Romberg. No, not at all. But Romberg wanted to fight Michael Pena because
Why?
he was there. It was him. and he was there with these two girls. All right. They were sitting in front of us for most of the game.
Right. He was talking about going back to like a studio or something.
Yeah, like he was real, like he was doing the whole spiel, man, like trying to impress them. And they were impressed. Like they were there with him. They were impressed. Like he's an actor and he's spitting game the whole time. Yeah. And I had to Romberg's just like, yo, I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna say something. This guy is such a tool bag. I'm gonna say something. And I'm like, please don't say anything. It's about to be a whole scene with stupid Michael Pena. So dumb.
I have a tendency of like, I don't know if it's that I don't want to watch the game or I have a hard time watching football games and I just want to cause trouble. I think I get a little ornery, like the sweep for the FSU game. I don't think there's been a time where I've actually said,
like you weren't drunk, like the FSU game, you were very inebriated. You know, this game, like you weren't, like you were totally fine. You were just really annoyed with Michael Pena from Ant-Man.
I just don't like shooters. I can't stand guys that, leverage their 17 cameos. I can't stand that.
I'm always like I'm like a moment away from trouble when I'm out at these events with you. Like when you and I went to see Slipknot and we almost had to rumble. All right, with a bunch of greasers. All right, you remember that? You remember what happened there? Romberg and I are at Slipknot and
I think you're the antagonizer, to be honest.
And that was almost like the Michael Pena situation. I wasn't gonna have to do anything except suffer secondhand embarrassment. But at the Slipknot concert, I mean, I was gonna have to get down, and it was gonna end so poorly for me. Like I'm gonna have to get down because, like, if Romberg's about to get involved in a tussle with 4 or 5 greasers, like I'm gonna have to do something, and it's gonna end with me cold cocked on the concrete. Do you remember what happened that night at the amphitheater? Do you remember what happened?
There was guys beside us, and they kept trying to like bump us or get close to us. Right? They were
like he was standing in front. Like we were in the first row of our section, so we had lots of room. And Buddy just kept kind of creeping over just so we can get a good view. And eventually he creeped so far that he was like totally in front of you. Yeah. And I was able to sense it coming, I'm like I could tell Romberg's getting annoyed, Right. And then all of a sudden you gave him a loud, he wasn't wearing a shirt, and you gave him a loud pat on the back of the shoulder. And he turned around. Yeah. And he turned around, it's like, hey, what's up? And you're like, what's up? He goes, yeah, just enjoying the show. And you were like, not here, you're not. No. And so then he walked back over, I don't know, like 5 seats down to where like 3 or 4 of his greaser buddies were. And he kind of says something to his buddy. And then his buddy, like the 3 of them look over in your direction. And Romberg just looks at them, shakes his head no. Shakes his head no. And then those guys, they slithered away.
Yeah, basically I was letting them know, via sign language that no, today's not your day.
Whatever you're thinking about doing, this is going to end poorly for you.
Yeah, especially during the Slipknot concert when I'm already on edge. No, you can't do that.
I'm like, oh, thank God this ended this way. It could have went such a different direction.
What was weird is when you got behind me and tried to get to the other side of me. That was funny.
Oh, man. Good catching up with you, dude. You got anything you need to promote? You got anything going on other than daddy daycare?
Oh, man, just, getting ready to go ahead and do the family holiday vacation thing. And I get to hook up with my old buddy, Drew Bennett, his family over there. So it's going to be adventurous. A lot of après de ski is going to go down. I imagine. You know what that is, right?
What is that?
Like halfway down the mountain, you stop and you have a couple cocktails and then you finish off and you finish.
Oh, really?
Dude, it's a huge thing. I played the ski after ski.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I was not aware of that. All right. Good looking out.
And they're gonna be coming out with like hot cookies that they freshly bake all day long for the kiddos. Yeah, it's fun. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Romberg going skiing with his girls. The ZASLOW family's going skiing as well. Not in the same place, but at the same time. There you have it.
Absolutely, man. Two peas in a pod.
All right, man. Great job, Romberg. Appreciate you hanging out again, dude.
Oh, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.